I just wondered about your point about the multinationals. I'm Colombian Justice and Peace, and we're quite involved with the London Mining Network. You said be kind to the multinationals to understand that countries may want their investment and so on. But our partners in the London Mining Network at the AGM this year of Rio Tinto had miners from Mongolia, and they have the last few years, from the Oyu Tolgoi copper gold mine. Very concerned that if that mine is developed, it's going to lead to a lot of environmental destruction. There hasn't been an adequate environmental impact on water, and the working conditions of the miners are very poor. So, as Justice and Peace people, it's very difficult to partner and endorse the action of many mining companies, I'd say the majority of the large-scale mining companies, and also be in solidarity with those who work in those mines, who, we've met in protest at mining AGMs in London, in the case of Mongolia, particularly Rio Tinto. So I just, wonder how you feel we can reconcile those tensions.
Thanks, Helen. Another one on that side also.
Michael McLaughlin, Southwark. Mongolia, again. Mongolia was the first, it was the subject of the first letter I ever got published in The Guardian, surprisingly. What it was about was that in 1991, Mongolia had economic troubles because the Soviet Union had collapsed and they no longer got support in that way. They asked for advice from the IMF, which they got. The usual advice that IMF gets, which is no context at all. They just get told to reduce their, take away their taxes for imports and things like that. Anyway, by 1994, 3 years later, they virtually destroyed the Mongolian economy because of following what the IMF told them to do. So, first of all, one question, I've got two questions. One is, will the IMF do the same to us after Brexit? And secondly, what should the Church be doing about the IMF and the World Bank and their neoliberal economics that are destroying so many lives across the world?
Okay, thank you, Michael. Maybe it'd be good to take those two, John, to follow up with Mongolia.
Okay. So, on the first point and the Mongolian mine, obviously there's different views and so on and things, but in that Mongolian mine at Rio Run, there's been one accident in all the time they've been developing it over the last 10 years. Obviously a big contrast to the Chinese mines, where people are dying pretty well every day in the Chinese mines. And one of the reasons for that, I always say in Mongolia, is democracy, is pressure that you have got a Mongolian government. And the Mongolian electorate have repeatedly voted for parties who want to do deals with mining companies. There's an argument about how tough they want to do the deals, but they are well paid at well-paid jobs in the some of the mines in Mongolia, much more so than the what's called the ninja miners, who just try and scrape a living together, digging for minerals themselves, basically, often risking their lives. And I was on a plane. I visited the mine, the mine you're talking about, and there is like there is with any mine, you've got to strike a balance with its impact on the local environment. You've got to have rules and so on and things, and there's always scope to make them better. But I was sitting next to a guy, and I was asking who he was, and he said he's 30, he's got 3 kids now, he's an engineer, and he grew up in the Gare district of Ulaanbaatar, where they don't have running water. He's a living embodiment of someone who's managed to get qualifications, partly through international aid and so on and things in his case, and he's worked his way up, and now he is at a mine where 98% of people are Mongolians who work there. So, yes, I didn't say be kind to the multinationals, I said talk to them, and I think we have to. And I also think, you know, one big law we could pass as a country, which I didn't touch on, is corporate governance, that, you know, companies should be responsible to more than their shareholders.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I think that would be an amazingly radical law to pass. So I'm very pleased that environmental groups and so on from Mongolia have access to the international community, because that keeps put pressure on Rio Tinto. And obviously it's a question of opinion, but I just don't think that you could carry the Mongolian people with you. And as I know that there is a lively democracy there, there is some people who would say we shouldn't have anything to do with multinational companies, but it's about 10% of the population. And without international capital and know-how, there's no way they can get richer. And at the moment they're still surviving on, I think it's about an annual income of about $500-600 US dollars, so $1,000 US dollars. So they do want to have some more of the good things in life. Anyway, on to the IMF and the World Bank. You're dead right about the IMF and the World Bank, but again, the message is the same again, really. They were worse 20 years ago. You know, they were definitely worse 20 years ago, the IMF and World Bank. Christine Lagarde, you know, comes from a tradition of politics in Europe which does have social concern on the agenda there. It's not just down to one person, but it's because international organisations, some Catholic, some not, some religious, some not, have shone a light on these organisations, that they have, and I won't go into all the detail, but they're certainly a lot less neoliberal than they were in the early 1990s in the deals that they do with some countries. And so again, for me, the answer is get stuck in, as we say in Yorkshire, and make the case for them.
Yeah, right, okay. From this side of the hall, gentleman at the back. No, sorry, in the right, yeah. Microphone's coming your way. Just give us your name, please.
Peter Hughes
Peter.
from the Colombian Missionaries. I'd like to ask a question about Brexit, although we probably all sick to the teeth of it at this stage. But how optimistic are you? You know, you're at a certain inside knowledge, I would imagine, but that we're going to have a reasonable deal with Europe. The tenor of the debate recently, as I'm listening to it, is it seems to be moving more hardline, that we are going to walk off without any deal, or a deal that won't be adequate, which obviously I think would be disastrous for England and especially for Northern Ireland. But I'm worried about the way the debate is going, you know, especially on the debates on the radio early in the morning. You get this kind of impression.
Okay.
So there you are.
Thanks, Peter. Just as anybody else on this side of the hall wants to, before we, the lady here at the front, could we get the microphone down here, please? And then there are two questions just behind, and we'll take those three together. Right. And can you tell us your name, please?
Kath Keegan,
Kath, hello.
Ellesmere Port, Catholic Parishes Justice and Peace Group. Social care that I'm very concerned about. I mean, I cared for my parents for 12 years, though we had carers coming in. But I've got a friend and my aunt of 97, and they're paying £1,000 a month for home care. And they're also relying on relatives. And I mean, it's the relatives who have to do an awful lot, caring for their relatives and loved ones. And I mean, my cousin, who mainly looks after my aunt, is on her third lot of care and isn't best pleased about it. But, you know, I mean, often it's not brought out that you're relying a lot on relatives who are getting older and frailer.
Okay, thank you, Kath. Just behind, gentleman just behind Kath. Your name, please.
Yeah, Mike Eltringham,
Mike.
Hitchin. The question I had is, it's more a question of why, or if or when, do we get an English Parliament, possibly based in a northern city, to deal with English matters, to balance what's going on in the other provinces, and why wasn't that done when you devolved things to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland?
Okay, I think
Why didn't the politicians just get on with it?
I think we better hold it there because we've got Brexit, we've got devolution and social care.
Okay. Well, we'll solve all those in 2 minutes, no problem. So Brexit, you're right, as I touched on Northern Ireland, you're right to highlight that. The idea of any physical border between the north and the south, the Chief Constable of the police service in Northern Ireland has warned about what the consequences of that could be. Those who know Ireland at all know that it's seared on the memory, the border, and we just have to absolutely avoid that. And I think, to be fair, Theresa May is very well appraised of that. There is a majority in the House of Parliament for what's called a soft Brexit, basically. You know, there'll be a majority to stay in the customs union, probably the single market, and that solves the problem of the Northern Ireland border. It would mean, obviously, a payment to Brussels. But within both political parties, they're both very divided. And Theresa May's been edging towards the softest Brexit she can get away with. It's not clear that will, what she comes back with, will command a majority in the Commons. I think I've changed my mind really. I think it's now unlikely that it will. And so I think we're going to have another eruption in politics towards the end of the year. And that's why I did make reference to perhaps we're going to need a further referendum, which will be the third in our nation's history. But we'll have to see. As I said, there is a majority there to vote for a soft Brexit, but it's a question of lining it up, and it seems unlikely at the moment. On social care, you're right to highlight the tremendous contribution that carers make, often unsung. I think people are getting better at recognising both financially and in terms of civic functions and so on, the role of carers, but I do think we do need a lot more money into social care for both the provision of care and to reward the people who are in it. I put forward one solution, which I won't repeat, but I do think in terms of, we haven't talked about young and old in our country, but I think it would be hard to get younger people who are burdened with student debt and so on paying any more, and that's why I floated the idea of contribution and inheritance tax. Thirdly, on Englishness and English parliaments, I mean, I think as an aside, that was one of the good things about the World Cup, that those who did watch it, you know, were excited by the sort of modern, inclusive nature of the team and the understatement of the manager and so on and things. Now, does that need a political expression? I suppose the problem with an English parliament would be that it would completely, if you're a unionist, and despite my sort of Catholic Irish roots for the time being anyway, you know, that we've got the union there in Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, it would, an English parliament would obviously dominate the other two, and I think one of the issues in British politics is north-south England and so on. London's a great city with its own mayor, and my priority, as I say, will be to have devolution in the north much more developed, not just in the north, but in the north, and for me that would be, I'd put a Yorkshire devolution settlement above an English parliament, but that's my particular preference.
Okay, yeah, thank you, John. One question here, lady, the second row, sat next to Mike. Down the middle aisle, please. and then Philip, secondly. Carry on, yeah. And then one lady over here. And I think probably take those 3 questions, that'll probably finish the morning for us. Your name, please.
Linda L. Trainan from Hitchin as well. Just a couple of comments. You obviously didn't watch the John Denham lecture in the House of Parliament on this English versus British identity, and you explained very well how Brexit is a consequence of not bringing about an English Parliament. And so it'd be worthwhile you watching that, because you might understand better the explanation that comes behind that. On the thing of Mongolia, I'd like you to bear in mind that Mongolia, because of the mines, the energy that is being used for mining copper, it's now of the worst polluted cities in the world, and a lot of people are paying for this progress through horrendous levels of pollution and the drop in health and asthma and all sorts of problems like that. So yes, there's progress, but there's regress as well. But the one thing that I want to say, we're talking about inclusive Britain. And a couple of things you also talked about is the pay gap between the rich and the poor, the highest paid in the company and the lowest paid in the company. And wouldn't it be a better solution if Britain moved to a model like Sweden, where everybody's salaries is known to the whole country? Individual salaries, not the highest and the lowest, would be a far better system by which to level and bring a fair country. Okay. My question, though, about my question is about inclusive Britain. You talked about the park runs being glad to have Bangladeshi women or whatever joining in. Since Brexit, the inclusive argument is about, with the Windrush, the Caribbeans join in, and the Muslims and the Bangladeshis or whatever. I never hear anybody say, and we're going to have French, and we're going to have Italians, and we're going to have Spanish. The Europeans are being left out. They are not welcomed anymore.
Okay, thank you. Lady to the right of us here in the striped t-shirt. Yeah. And then Philip, and then we'll have to close it. Yeah. And your name, please?
My name's Anna Gibson.
Anna.
I just wanted to ask a question, please, about the so-called hostile environment for migrants, and to ask you, is there any real will in Parliament to both expose and change that ideology? Thank you.
Okay, and then Brian, Philip, please, and then we'll have to close the questions, I think, to keep the morning on track.
Thanks very much. Just a quick preface, the playwright of this house studied drama at the University of Hull. So we'll know that, everyone. Bravo him. A couple of contentious questions for you, which are linked, to do with inclusivity and representation. Now, I'm sure nobody here would fault the Queen on her work ethic, and many other members of the royal family. But you mentioned what we can learn from Ireland. When you compare us having a hereditary monarchy as head of state, and when you think of Mary Robinson, Mary McAleese, Michael D. Higgins, what wonderful examples they've been, leading human rights lawyers, a poet no less at the moment, leading the Republic of Ireland, and what they've done for Ireland and for human rights. It seems to me that we could argue that for all the good that the royal family do, they are the keystone in the arch of heredity, elitism, and as Tony Benn used to say, how do they get there? It's not personal. It's not personal. So, and of course, I know it's a great taboo and that no politician will put their head above the parapet, or very few anyway. But I wonder what you think about that. And finally, on that point, our electoral system. Now, I know we had a very bungled, awful referendum before. But the plain fact is, the first past the post system, as you probably know from your own bitter experiences, is deeply unrepresentative. And it's almost as infantilizing as the way the priesthood of all the people possibly are treated by the magisterium, or at least the hierarchy in the church. So I just wonder what you think about that. Thank you.
Okay, so very quickly, to get through all those, last mention of Mongolia, I didn't quite expect it to cover so much, but you're dead right to mention the pollution in Ulaanbaatar. It's nothing to do with the mining, actually. It's to do with the gear districts, because people come in to the edges of the city, they put up their gears, and often without running water and so on, and they burn whatever they can burn to try and keep warm when it's -40 in the winter. And so there's a lot of assistance going in to try and change the basic fuel, because that's the basic cause of it. Also, there's too many cars on the road as there is in many places, and the mayor is, you're only allowed to drive your car once every couple of days. They have depending on your number plate and so on. So they're very well aware of it, and they're trying to deal with it. It's worse than Beijing. But that's the reason. As I say, it's nothing to do with the rest of the economy and the mining, but they need to become richer in order for them to be able to deal with it, really. So it's a bit of a catch-22. You did mention salaries. They do that in Norway and Sweden, and I'm very well aware of that. And obviously, I think that sort of thing, I think I'd give the same answer as that cardinal did about women priests and male priests to me. It's a question of changing the culture, and so I don't think it will happen. I don't think it will happen yet. I think it'll be very. It's not within. I think there'll be a lot of sort of privacy concerns within our Anglo-Saxon culture, but nevertheless, you're dead right. It would make an impact. And was there another point I saw you got?
Europe.
Oh, Europe. Europeans. I think, which brings on to number 2 really, the hostile environment. I think Windrush has made a difference. I think the new Home Secretary is very well aware that he doesn't want the same, he doesn't want to fall victim to a similar scandal politically. I think whatever happens with Brexit, actually, I do think there's now recognition in government that they've got to make the process as simple as possible for European citizens who are seeking to stay here. And it's not going to cost £1,000. I think it's going to be £50 or £60. And I think the general emphasis is going to be on giving people more the benefit of the doubt. Undoubtedly there will be some hard cases, but I'm quite optimistic actually that as far as Europeans are concerned and establishing their rights to live here, if Brexit does happen, I'm quite optimistic, not least because there's many Brits living in Europe, that common sense will prevail. And more generally, on the question of the hostile environment, I'm hopeful, yes, that there's people in all parties who will change this, and particularly as regards refugees and asylum seekers. There's an awful lot of good work. I always say that Keighley is a very good place to be an asylum seeker or a refugee, because this is a good example of good small town Britain. It's hard, there's enough good people in the town working through one Catholic organisation, the Salvation Army. It's very hard to fall beneath the cracks in a place like Keighley. If you do go to the local library as a refugee family, something's going to happen upon you. And I see a lot of refugees through these routes. So I think that's a good thing about social action in some of our small towns. Thirdly, not bitter experiences, actually. I never say democracy, it's not bitter experience. Democracy should be harsh at times in the sense that people's careers are on the line, but there should be a bit about about democracy. It should be, I remember Ted Heath's furniture coming out when I was, when he stopped being Prime Minister in 1974. There was that ritual, wasn't there? They've changed it now about the Prime Minister's furniture coming out, and that was a symbol of the change of power. And equally, more recently, Gordon Brown, and it's the first time he saw his kids walking down the street. And so, I know, obviously not at that level, but not bitter. You should never get bitter in politics. But yeah, I do agree with you on changing the electoral system. Something like Germany or Scotland I would go for, which has the constituency system, which I think is very important, There are MPs in Parliament who have to go back to their constituencies every week, and they do get informed on issues they otherwise wouldn't, but they're topped up with members from a list, and you get more proportional. I would agree with that. As for Her Majesty, you're right about Presidents of Ireland, but there is one greater authority than Tony Benn, and that is, of course, Jeremy Corbyn. And he says he has no current plans to challenge the monarchy, and who would I be to disagree?